Oh, why did I hit images? Why did I hit images? Why did I hit images? Yo. Welcome to... I forgot that happened. Do you know what you were up to in 1993? Maybe you were in high school. Maybe you were a little baby. Maybe you were a spackle in your mother's eye or a squirt in your left dad's nut. Or your nut, the nuts of your left dad testicles. I'll tell you where you were not in 1993, June to be specific, in Virginia. This is the intersection of Maplewood and Old Centreville Road in Manassas, Virginia. Nice little 7-Eleven right there. Nice little field. This all makes sense in a second. The reason I can say that I know you weren't at that location in 1993 is that the police had that area completely blocked off. You see, that location is the location of one of the most famous search and rescues in the 90s.
Looked for it after learning that the wife had thrown it out the car window.
They weren't looking for Scruffy. They weren't looking for someone's car keys. They were looking for the personal belongings of John Bobbitt. John Bobbitt lost his cock. See, I had to censor that because I want to monetize this in the future, but his wife cut off his veiny, huge, vein testicles and hucked them in a field down the road. Okay, we need context here. This is probably the biggest court trial of the early 90s. And I know what you're thinking, what about the other trial that happened in the early 90s? I know, but this one's a little bit more interesting. Not one severed in a field in Virginia in the legal scripture. Call it morbid curiosity. I find this trial more interesting, okay? If the ain't slit,
you must acquit.
Let's start this thing. John and Lorena Bobbitt got married in 1989. John was 22, he was an active Marine from upstate New York. And Lorena, 20 years old, raised in Venezuela, and moved to America, in her words, to live the American dream. Now, these young turtle doves only got married after 9 months of dating. I don't think I've ever met someone that's married that only dated. That just seems like a red flag. Like, they're obviously very impulsive in their decision-making process. So apparently they met at a Marine single night ball, which I was genuinely convinced was only a thing in Hollywood war movies. Turns out these things really happen. That's our couple. In fact, allegedly, Lorena proposed to John Bobbitt, not the other way around, and she had her mom present. Conveniently, when her student visa was soon to expire, which would require her to go back to Venezuela. They say romance is dead. Eat your heart out, Shakespeare. Hamlet sucked. So now John and Lorena Bobbitt are married. A young, hot-headed Marine with known anger issues, and an immigrant from Venezuela who barely speaks English, who's heavily Catholic. Let's do this. First incident happened shortly after their wedding. Now, mind you, the incidents that lead up to Lorena giving John the Shaft Blaster 4000, they did happen, but I'm going off of so much he said, she said bullshit, because this is all court document shit, but they were a fucking toxic ass couple. First incident that occurred shortly after the wedding. According to Lorena, a month after their wedding, John was driving their car erratically, and Lorena asked him to stop, placing her hands on the steering wheel to try to straighten their route. It was then when John allegedly punched her in the face. Now again, I can't confirm or deny if this actually happened. Assault, man or woman, is not okay. But I'm trying to imagine this circumstance in my head, because cars are small, right? So if they're sitting in the car, she's reaching over grabbing the wheel, and he's like got her hands on, like did he like pin back and just clock her one like that? Or did he like, because her hands were there, did he do like the Lelu Dallas multi-pass? Like what happened is what I want to know. It's not okay, but my brain just wants to make this make sense. But again, that first instance, there's really no way of proving it. It's Lorena's version of the story. John said that story never happened. There's no real way of telling. So yeah, that's a month into their marriage, so coming in strong. So what happens next? 2 years later, John is then discharged from the Marines. He no longer has a steady paycheck. He was job hopping for a while. He had trouble holding down a job. Lorena was working part-time as like a nanny, and she also got a job as a manicure person at a salon. A nail technician. That's what they're called. And this is where Lorena met her best friend. It's the third and last name of this story you need to know, Jana Basutti. She's the owner of the salon where Lorena works. So with John being out of a job, Lorena started embezzling money from the salon that she worked at. She was caught by her friend Jana, who owned the salon, stealing $7,000 where she had her pay it back with interest, but she could keep her job as a nail technician. She would later then get caught stealing from the Nordstrom racks. She would steal some dresses, but she got caught doing that and had to serve community service. Lorena's argument there, money was tight. Her husband just lost her job as a Marine. She needed the money to upkeep with her lavish lifestyle, as John Bobbitt claimed that she desired. Just a few months after that, apparently, Lorena got pregnant, and John didn't want the kid. Again, this is Lorena's side of the story. John Bobbitt claims that they both agreed that they weren't ready for it.
I don't want to have a child without a father.
Well, we should wait. She wasn't happy about it, but, you know, what can you do?
But they ended up pursuing not having the pregnancy. So I think the main takeaway is after all these events have occurred, we can agree that both parties absolutely f***ing despised each other. Which now brings us to the incident. We're talking fight night at the Bobbitt house. No holds barred, classic 1993 shit show. Lorena wants that title, baby. She's going full heel on this bitch. Number 30 on the Royal Rumble. Crying, lying, trying, flying. Here's what happened. So June 1993, Manassas, Virginia, hitteth thy fan. The police in Manassas already know all about Lorena and John. They are that couple. That f***ing couple.
Complaints of domestic violence at their residence about half a dozen times.
We all know that couple. So in June, it is alleged that John brought up the idea of divorce to Lorena.
I feel like I don't want to fall into the marriage. I'm Catholic and I don't believe in divorce.
Lorena, at that particular time in the relationship, did not feel safe around John. Lorena alleges that he's abusive, manipulative, and he's into like really dominant sex stuff. So in fact, the day before the incident happened, Lorena actually went to the police department in Manassas, Virginia to get a protective order against John Bobbitt. So Lorena's still upset about the divorce proposal from her husband John. She decided to try to get that protective order, but didn't want to wait 3 hours, so homie just dipped. So that night, John's friend is actually in town and they decided to go out drinking and go bar hopping while Lorena stayed at home. John and his friend returned home late in the night, I assume fucking hammered. And it was that moment when John got to his bedroom where Lorena alleges John her. Now, mind you, for context, in the future of the story, when the court case is going on, John has absolutely no recollection of any sexual acts that happened that night, but he does vaguely recall what he refers to as petting. Well, none of that anymore. Okay, so after whether that happened or not, around 4 a.m. Lorena went into the kitchen to get herself a glass of water, in what she explains to be in a delusional state of rage and anger and violation. She notices on her counter an 8-inch knife. And 8 inches is like a big ass knife, okay? Like an average knife is like, a normal knife is like 3 inches. Right, ladies? Yo. Lorena then re-enters the room where in a drunken slumber is her husband John Bobbitt.
Pick up the knife and I went back to the bedroom. I took the sheets off and
cuts his fucking dick off! No cap, young people. We're talking straight up. The dick! Lorena Bobbitt is just standing over the bed with John right there in the bed, dickless as shit, holding his shaft. She bails. She just leaves the house with his dick. It's the middle of the night. Lorena is driving down the road in Manassas, Virginia with John's dick. But let's forget Lorena for a second. What the hell's up with John? Apparently, according to John, because he was so hammered when it happened, he just woke up in a pool of blood and didn't know what happened. Like, at all. He said in a mixture of confusion and shock, his friend was over, you remember? How do you think that conversation went? So now Lorena's God knows where. John's on his way to the hospital, which around then must have been the time where John or John's friend contacted the police. Lorena, on the other hand, much like her marriage, that dick was stressing her out. So she hucked it, threw it into a field while she was driving. Ended up at her best friend's house, Jana Basuti's, the Solano. So Lorena's gonna shack up there. John's at the hospital without a dick. What else is going on? Search and rescue, baby. The police are then dispatched to go find his dick. The hospital gave him some hope. If they can find it, they might be able to twine it. Search begins. By some f***ing dick miracle, an officer finds it directly across the street from a 7-Eleven. So we have success. The cop found John's dick, right? And there's a 7-Eleven next door. So he goes hightailing it to the 7-Eleven. Homeboy runs straight back to the hot dog section and grabs those foldy to-go trays that you put your hot dogs in. Filled the hot dog tray with ice and then put John's dick in it. Probably got a cup of coffee and then hightailed it to the hospital. And after a 9.5-hour surgery, they reattached it. They reattached it. Lorena, later that night, was arrested. She was charged with malicious wounding, where if convicted and found guilty, she could serve up to 20 years in prison. That's it. That's the story. Nobody really cared after.
Story that has fascinated and divided America.
It all comes down to who you believe. Do you believe him or do you believe her?
It just doesn't seem right what she did.
What about when he was beating her up and raping her? No one cared then.
$15,000 cash if you show me your penis. You won't.
24-year-old manicurist from Venezuela is accused of severing the penis of her husband, 26-year-old John Bobbitt, while he was sleeping.
Celebrities overnight. The public ate this shit up. There was so much to it. You had the missing organ, you had the relationship drama, there had all kinds of juicy gossip to watch before Roseanne was on. Naturally, the men all sided with John, or at least most of the men, and the same goes for Lorena. The women batted for Lorena. After the trial and everything, John was found not guilty for sexual assault. And Lorena, having pled temporary insanity in the incident itself, she was required to attend a psychiatric ward for 45 days. Shortly after the trial, Lorena became an advocate for battered women and domestic violence victims, which is a great and noble thing to do. She did run into some legal problems shortly after with an assault on her mother, allegedly, but modern day you see her on shows talking about, you know, advocating against domestic violence. So I truly commend her for that. So good job for that. John starred in Porn. 1994 VHS uncut featuring John Wayne Bobbitt, as well as another one called Frankenpenis. Roll the end screen. Hey, whoa, that was crazy. If you want to hang out with me, I am live on Twitch every Friday at Central Time, 8 p.m. So be sure to check me out on there. If you did like the video, drop a like, leave a comment on any videos you want me to cover in the future, and look at my other videos.